Hey guys, it's Gigi. Come on into my kitchen. Welcome back for another recipe. Let me share with you what I'm going to be doing today. I have been thinking a whole lot about, I don't know whether to call it a snack or a breakfast or just a treat that my nanny used to make for me and my sister Teresa. And of course, both of them have passed from this life, but I still hold a lot of sweet memories. Well, one of the memories that I have of my nanny, and that's my mother's mother, is she used to make for us cinnamon fritters. Now, not what you think of as a traditional fritter. And I have longed for those fritters. And I do remember asking her one time before she passed, Nanny, how did you make those fritters? And she said, well, honey, I don't really know. I just cook. I don't, she wasn't really one that cooked by a recipe. She just got in the kitchen and cooked. So what I'm attempting to do today is to remember all the flavors in my taste buds, and I'm going to try my best to come as close as I can to replicate that cinnamon fritter. Now, it was more on the side of, it was the shape of, like, if I had to describe it, I would say a salmon patty. That size. Almost like a little small cinnamon pancake with kind of like a crispy edge. So I'm going to put together all the flours. I have written it down and I've got it here on my iPad, and I'm going to attempt my own hand at this recipe, and we'll just see how it turns out. It may end up tasting nothing like my nanny's did, but we're going to give it our best shot. I've written down a recipe that I'm going to try to follow, so y'all just hang with me, and I'm hoping that by the end of this, I can have something that somewhat tastes like the cinnamon fritters that my nanny used to make for me and my sister. So in my mixing bowl, I have got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. To this, I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar. Give me just a second. There we go. I had it right the first time. Okay, so to my 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, I'm going to do 3 tablespoons. I've got my griddle over here on my little cook stove burner that I got. I'll be sliding it over here when we get to that point. But I'm just letting my pan get hot while I get all this mixed together. So that was 1 tablespoon of sugar, 2 and 3. So then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. You can see. I'm glad that I looked. Baking powder. I'm glad I saw that. 1 and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Let me grab my whisk. And then I've got 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now, y'all are just doing this with me, okay? We're playing with a recipe today. So 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I think that's all for my dry ingredients. All right, let's give that a little whisk. Okay, All right, so to this, we're going to go ahead and add our wet ingredients, and that is just going to be 2/3 cup of milk. I'm using whole milk. And a well-beaten egg. Or lightly beaten, you're going to mix it up in the... And you know, I just remember the taste of cinnamon. And I don't know why, because it's my recipe and I'm playing with it, but I'm gonna add just a little bit more. I think I put 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and I'm gonna put 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, okay? All right. And I'm also, because I'm playing around and I don't really know what my nanny used, I'm also going to put 1/2 teaspoon of, let me wipe that off. I don't want to get cinnamon, even though I love cinnamon, I don't want to get cinnamon down in my vanilla. 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. We shall see. All right, let me just slide all these ingredients out of the way. Let's give that a good mix. Now this should be like a thick pancake batter consistency, because what I can recall, they were just, like I said, the size of a, bigger than a silver dollar, what you call a silver dollar pancake, but around about the size of a salmon patty, a fried salmon patty. That's just in my mind as a little girl, that's what I can kind of think about it looking like. I'm just gonna get all that well incorporated, and then let me put a little butter on my skillet over here and see if it's ready. It's a sizzling. And then I'm just going to take one of my large serving spoons, which let's say about a quarter of a cup. Let me see if I can get this pulled over here in your view. Yeah, I think I can. No problem, no problem, no problem. So let me add a little bit more butter. Now, my nanny may have used vegetable oil, canola oil. I don't know what she used. But, you know, I feel like you can use butter or oil, whichever, for your frying purposes. But I'm just opting, and I'm sure I'm using a flat griddle. I'm sure my nanny, because I got both of them out because I wasn't sure which one I was going to do, but I think I'm going to do it on my griddle. Now, I have got my griddle right now turned about 1.5 to 2, because y'all know that this is a new contraption that I'm using. So I'm still playing around with the temperature of it, but I'm going to take a serving spoon, and I'm just going to start and drop 1 tablespoon, because playing around with this, I feel like the serving spoon gives you just about the size that I remember these being, okay? So that's what we're going with. I think it's safe that I can turn it up now to about 2.5. We'll go up to about 2.5. Make sure I've got y'all in. Yep, you can see. Or I hope you can. And I think I've got that mixed really well. I mean, it smells good. I just, you know, that is one of the fondest memories that I have of my nanny, is just being in the kitchen. She would literally take half of the kitchen outside and have a little picnic with me and my sister. She would fix us lunch, and then she would take it out there, and she would set this little picnic table up that she had out there, just an old metal table with 2 metal chairs, and she would have a picnic with us. And I can remember while we were sitting there eating our lunch, having our picnic, my nanny would be hanging clothes on the clothesline with her clothespins down in her little apron, and she'd be hanging up clothes. Let me grab a spatula too. And, but I will never forget her making these cinnamon fritters. And so I said, oh, I wish that I could replicate them. They were like a small cinnamon pancake. She didn't put syrup over the top of them. She didn't sprinkle them with powdered sugar. Maybe she sprinkled a little cinnamon or something on the top. I can't remember anything about that. Of course, I was little, but I just remembered that they tasted wonderful. I tried these years ago, making these for my children, and my children were like, yeah. And I'm like, I didn't have a clue. Young mother trying to cook something that my nanny made for me, and my children were like, I don't know if I like them, Mama. And it was probably just way too much flour, not enough of this, I don't know. But they were right. It did not taste like what I remember my nanny's tasting like. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that I can somehow replicate something that reminds me of my childhood. I've never had them anywhere else. My nanny never wrote the recipe down. I just know that she would stand over there at her stove and she would just make batches of them. I mean, she would have a plate full of these. And so I'm playing with a very small recipe because I'm not sure how they're going to turn out just yet. But I've wrote it down because if they do turn out like what I hope they will, then I can just double the recipe. All right, we're gonna go ahead and give them a flip, guys. Now, my nanny's, hers seemed, like I'm saying, I'm trying to recollect in my mind as a child, but seemed like my nanny's were a little darker, so I don't know if she added more cinnamon or if she added maybe even a little cocoa powder, you know, for the brown, because they were really a lot browner, but about this size, but maybe a little bit browner than this. But now you can, I think my nanny maybe just spread a little butter on top of ours. But I just remember they were crispy around the edges and light and fluffy on the inside. And I know you're probably thinking, well, that looks like nothing but I keep feeling like I have something on me. Like a little cinnamon pancake. And probably that is a whole lot of what it was like. But she may have even taken some sugar, like some granulated sugar and brown sugar as a sprinkle on the top. That I can't remember. I just remember it being just like a little treat of like a little small, she called them cinnamon fritters. So that's what I'm calling them. And I'm gonna turn that down because that's definitely crisping up. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure this thing out. So let's take these off because I'm pretty sure those are done. And we're gonna add a little bit more. You know, I'm gonna try, I did that one with butter. I'm gonna try this one with a little oil. And let's try another batch. I think I'm gonna do these a little thinner. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do these a little bit thinner than I did that first batch. And listen, if you've ever made anything like this for your children or your grandchildren, and you know what my nanny's mind process and concept was, please, by all means, share it with me. Because believe me, I will know when I taste it. When I get to that taste of what I remember them tasting, you see the little bubbles. But guys, I will, just for the sake of running my video too long, I'll keep frying these up, and then I'll come back and we'll give these a taste test together, okay? And I'll let you know what I think. Okay guys, we're back. I have finished frying up the fritters, and let me tell you what I did. I went ahead and finished up that second batch that I was doing when I put you on pause, and then I decided they weren't coming out as dark as what I remembered my nannies being, so I added a tablespoon of cocoa powder, okay? Now, they do look more like what I recall in color. In color, do you see the difference after I added the cocoa? Like I said, I don't really know. I'm just kind of playing around with it until I find the right taste. But let's go ahead. I'm going to give one of the darker ones a taste, since that's just more like what they look like. And let's see about taste, okay? Here goes. Not there. Not there. Not bad, but not there. I'm thinking more cinnamon, where I did 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. Maybe I need to do 2. The crunch around the edge is definitely there. And they are good. Now, I just put a little chocolate mousse here, just to dip it in. But I mean, listen, these are good. And it's very possible that my taste buds have changed since I was a little girl. But these are not exactly like what I remember my grandmother's being. I'm not getting the strong taste of cinnamon, because she called them, I do know she called them cinnamon fritters. So I feel like the cinnamon needs to be more pronounced, more prominent in the recipe. I do think adding the cocoa doesn't make them taste like, you know, real chocolatey, but definitely gives them the color. Another thing, I thought, well, maybe my nanny literally deep fried them and put them on a paper towel or a towel to, I would say a towel, because probably back in that day they didn't waste money on paper towels. But let them drain on a cloth. Maybe she deep fried them in canola oil or vegetable oil or something, giving them a darker, crispier taste. But hey, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep playing around, because it's not far off, but it's definitely not there. Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, thank you guys for hanging out with me and sticking with me while I experimented with a childhood recipe. And I'm going to keep playing around with it until I get it perfected, until I put it in my mouth and it takes me immediately back to my childhood in my nanny's kitchen. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. If I can encourage you before I close out this video, be the hands and feet of Jesus. Be his mouthpiece. Show some love and kindness to somebody today. And what I'd like to say to you, if you're anywhere in this winter storm that they're calling for over the weekend, I pray that you stay safe and warm and that you prepare in the best way that you can possibly prepare. My husband has gone out now looking for a few little supplies that he wants to have on hand. Y'all know he works for the power company and has been in this field for 40 years. So he knows what to do to prepare for us. But pray for those who will be out working in these storms. And I pray that each one of you would be safe in the comforts of your home. All right. I love you guys, and I'll see you back again soon. Bye-bye.